Welcome to Beyond the Book. I'm your host, JoAnn Dickinson, and today I am so excited to introduce you to the award-winning and self-published author, Frances Mackay. Frances is the talented and creative force behind Silly Books. I love your books, Frances. Nate's Nosy Nose, Baby Worries is hilarious. A Dinosaur Came to My Birthday Party. I think that's a newer one. We will be discussing how her teaching background shapes every page and how she cleverly weaves in humor, emotionally learning, and SEL STEM concepts. I can't wait to get into these books because I am dying to find out, Frances, how you create these hilarious books. If our listeners don't have them, they need to order them, Frances. Share with us about a little bit about your background, and then we'll get into some of the questions that we have about your books.
Thank you for inviting me, JoAnn. I'm here in Tasmania, which is a little state right down the bottom of Australia. It's winter here, so it's very chilly. My writing really started in elementary school. I had a teacher in year 5 who encouraged me to write, and he asked me to write some little books for the classroom library, and I still have them. Look.
Oh,
these
oh my gosh. Look, I love that your
little
penmanship is so beautiful for that age.
When I became a teacher, I took on that love of writing myself, and I encourage children to write and create their own little books. So again, I've kept some of these. There's a little one that someone
Oh my
made, a
gosh.
little pop-up in the story. And then I was seconded for a year when I was working in England to help teachers teach writing. I did a whole year working with teachers, so that was really exciting. And then I set up my own educational publishing. No, hang on, backtrack. I started to write articles for Scholastic magazines, their school magazines, and then they commissioned me to write quite a few books. So I have over 90 traditionally published education books.
That's fantastic.
And then I tried my hand at independent writing, and so I've produced 15 books now.
Wow. Self-published 15 books so far. 90 with Scholastic or 90 throughout your years of writing?
Quite a few were Scholastic, but no, with Oxford University Press, Folan's, Ginn, several Australian publishers, so with a variety of publishers.
Frances, you've had books published with a publisher. Now you are self-published. What do you like better? What do you feel was the better experience?
Times have changed, and when I was traditionally published, number one, it was easier then to get traditionally published than it is today. And I was writing educational books for teachers, which was a different genre than picture books. But the hard part is always the marketing. When you publish independently, you have to do everything. The marketing, and I think most self-published authors find that it's the marketing that's the hard grind. You know, if you're published with Scholastic, obviously they do the bulk of the marketing. That's half the battle, probably 90% of the battle.
I have heard that over and over. Self-published authors, it's all marketing. For new authors, Frances, who have a great story idea, maybe it's silly, heartfelt, or tied to a classroom lesson, how do you take that idea and shape it into something both funny and educational? Your books are hilarious. Did you did you just decide to write those and you wanted to be silly about it?
I think my memories as a classroom teacher are that if you have fun with kids, they learn so much better. And we all remember teachers who have a laugh and you can have fun with them. And I think that's what spurs me on. For example, I have a series of counting books. So I've got monsters, dinosaurs, and spooky. And so even though it's a counting book, I've built in other questions that encourage the children to have a little bit of fun. But it's just a simple count, one green monster pulling a funny face. So it's got counting and colours and expression. But I also added a question, what funny faces can you pull? So straight
Oh,
away, it involves the children into being silly and funny and interactive. And the next page
absolutely.
goes on to looking at number 2 and introducing the word pairs. You've got pairs of wings. So you
Mm.
try and bring in educational things like just not counting, but colours and comparison and size and all of those things. So the book isn't just totally counting, it brings in other concepts as well in a fun way.
I had that conversation with Robin Katz, my editor, and we talked about how can we bring more than one thing, STEM subject, more than one story, always trying to broaden the age group so they can keep coming back to that silly book just to look at the Martian's face and then reading it and counting and colors. I love the multi-layer that your books have. That's
With older children, see, when I used to use picture books with my 10-year-old children when I was teaching. And so what I did with that monster book was developed a flip book. So the children draw, I've got a page here, they draw a monster in 3 parts. So it's got a head, a middle, and
how
the feet.
fun.
And then they make a flip book so that they can swap around the feet and the head and the. But
I
and
can
then they
see
can
there's another page under there, right?
well, they can do as many pages as they like, so it makes different. And then they can write a story about it. So it's making it more interactive. And even though it's a picture book and little ones learning to count couldn't make one of these probably, but older children could. So even though it's a young book, they can take it further and make their own monster books.
I can tell you've been a teacher for many
Yeah.
years. All the ideas that you have, I love that. Have you thought about making a book with those flip pages in it? Wouldn't that be a great idea?
It'd probably be too expensive to print,
Yeah,
probably.
that's the other side of it, isn't it, Frances? The
Yeah.
of making a book today. I was just thinking about that this morning about I would love to write another book, but I'm engulfed in these chapter books and I feel like, you only can do one at a time because you're so invested in that. And then to do another one, the cost of it, it does get costly.
It does, very.
As a longtime teacher, how has your classroom experience shaped your way of writing for children? Are there certain lessons or lesson plans you bring directly into the storytelling? When you're writing a book, I was just doing this today, creating a podcast of how I actually wrote one of my books. And I think about how the whole thought process of when you get an idea and then you start listing and you start typing. Does your past experience of teaching help directly? Do you think about, I had this situation with this student, let me write about this? I would think that you would have a lot to write about because of so much experience.
Yes. I don't think I directly think that makes me want to write, but I just sort of I've always taught in that way in class. I've always taken a book and taken it further than what it really is. I mean, my Nate's noisy nose is a good example of that because in this story, Nate has a very weird nose that makes musical sounds. So it might go pa pa or boom, boom, bang, bang, click. And it gets him into all sorts of trouble at school and
Oh,
home. But again, even though it's a picture book, with any age children, they could go on to make musical instruments that make the sounds, or they might go into science and actually explore sound making and how sounds are made and so on. So I think nearly every book can go off in all sorts of directions into science or emotional. And this involves emotional learning as well, because Nate is banished from everywhere because of the noise he makes. And so he gets very down. And so he brings in a scientist eventually is brought in to make a noisy nose machine. And again, children could create a noisy nose machine
Oh,
of their own. They could design one. So I won't tell you the ending though.
how clever. No, don't tell me the ending. I didn't realize his nose was noisy because of instruments. I find that I was thinking as you were saying that, how interesting of a story. I don't think I've ever read, not that I've read thousands of books, but I have never, that's what I love about your books, Frances. I have never seen it in a book, but they are so funny. And the covers, do you create the covers of your book or does your illustrator create them?
A bit of both. The illustrator I worked with on those books and Baby Worries, she's excellent, and talking about cost, very expensive, but she's very, very good. So we work together. I usually like to design something in Canva that I like, and then she'll respond to that. But also my book, I have a book designer as well. So we all get together and we work out the best way to present it.
Who's your illustrator for Baby Worries?
And Nate, it's Dottie Colvin. She's English, but she lives in Italy on Lake Como, which is a very nice place to live.
Yeah. Well, she's very talented. You have to have a sense of humor when you're creating those. Do you just give her your manuscript and then you work together from that point?
Yeah, she is a cartoonist actually. So
That explains her talent.
yeah, so yes, she interprets my story. So where it starts off with lots of all sorts of noses, big ones, red ones, round ones, little ones, that sort of thing. And
Oh
then
my gosh, I love that.
that's the inside of Nate's nose with all the instruments.
Look at the uniqueness of her drawing. She drew a big, huge, a nasal cavity with all these instruments in it. That is hilarious. And the kids that are reading that, they're thinking, could I have instruments in my nose like that? Could I put those up my nose?
We don't want them to do that.
But it's so much imagination. It's just phenomenal. I can't say enough, Frances, and I'm not saying that because I'm sitting in front of you. I love your books and I love your humor. You appear to me as so reserved and so quiet to come out with a manuscript that is just so funny. You're so talented. It takes a lot of talent.
Well, thank you. And people keep asking me where I got the idea from that book, and I honestly and truly don't know. I keep a little notebook beside my bed, and I just write down these ideas, and for the life of me, I do not know. I mean, my husband snores, maybe that's it.
You were laying in bed thinking about what could I write next and he's snoring. It's the nosy nose. My husband snores as well. I push him off to the side a couple times because I can't go to sleep.
With my Baby Worries book, it's a story about a newborn baby who meets his family for the first time, his extended family. And as he meets each one, he starts to worry what he's going to look like when he grows up. Will he have the same big ears or will he have the same hair or whatever? And I know where that idea came from because my nephew had a baby and he brought the baby to a big family gathering for the first time. And the baby just looked at us with this very serious face as if to say, what am I doing here and who are you all? It was just so funny that I
Where did
wondered
all
what
these
the
people
baby was thinking.
I can only imagine visually that baby's thinking, oh my gosh, who are these people? And you actually see that so often on babies' faces,
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, who is this person?
Who is this person
That is,
poking their face?
show us a couple of illustrations in that book, Frances. That is, my husband and I laughed so hard. I bought that book and we laughed so hard and thought that was so hilarious because we could think of the people in our family that could be that person and think, oh my gosh, so and so's baby is thinking about this person that's bald and somebody's got glasses and they're making all these weird faces at them. It's hilarious.
Well, this is Uncle Ted with his bandy legs, and baby's looking at his legs from that, and then he imagines that am I going to have legs like that? So he's imagining what he might look like.
Oh my gosh.
And here he's imagining what he might look like with all the different hairstyles. Yeah.
That one, I love the picture of the older man that I think he has big ears or something. And the baby's face is like, my gosh, I'm going to have ears like that. Or he has hair coming out of his nose or something.
Oh, yeah. That was his grandpa, because grandpa says he looks like a right little monkey. Baby worries that he might grow monkey's ears.
Your illustrator, I didn't know that she created comics. I can see now where all of that talent comes from. You've embraced both writing and design in your publishing process. What part of creating a book, writing, illustrating, or book design sparks the most joy for you? I love writing. That's my creative side. But when I give that manuscript to an illustrator and she surprises me for the first time with illustrations, it's like a kid at Christmas time.
Yeah. It's the illustrations, obviously, that bring it to life. And the hard part is finding an illustrator that actually does that. You know, with Nate's Noisy Nose, I tried 2 or 3 illustrators, and the designs that came back just didn't suit my imagination of what the book would look like. But I love the whole design thing. I've created books myself, which you can do today. You can do that. And I love the designing because I'm not an illustrator, sadly. I would love to be able to illustrate.
I wish I could. I envy the Bacon Girls. Janine is so talented. And I wish I could create. I have this idea for a giraffe and this silly story about a giraffe and pizza eating dragon. And I have all these ideas, but I wish I could create them. You mentioned creating books in Canva. I don't think it's the same as a true talented illustrator that's hand drawing those. I tried using AI and dropping in a dragon and dropping in a pizza. It's not the same. I don't want to put something out like that.
No, but you can design it, and that gives you ideas. But no, I wouldn't do it for a published book. But I do love playing around with the design on the page, and because I've created magazines and all sorts of things like that. So I really enjoy that.
When did you work for a magazine company?
I'll show you.
Okay, yes.
This is slightly off topic.
That's okay. No, that's what we do.
Over the last 10 months, I've been working with 36 other Australian independent authors, and we've collated a catalogue together so that each author has chosen one of their books and they've created activities to go with the book. And then we've put it together in a catalogue.
Oh,
books for teachers. So I've designed the catalogue and I
oh.
had such fun doing it, putting it all.
My gosh, they're fabulous.
And now we're approaching schools to try and this comes back to that marketing question, if you're self-published, each of us individually are all trying to do the same thing. We're all trying to get our book noticed, to get our book out there. And I thought, we're all trying so hard. Why don't we join together in some way and put it together collaboratively, and we all market the catalogue? So just recently, one teacher went to a school and did a talk about her book, but she showed the catalogue to the teacher and they did a big order for all the other authors' books. So it's just a way of joining together and helping each other, really.
Absolutely. My illustrator for Amelia Ophelia series, and then now the Hawthorne Manor, she's a 5th grade teacher and she works for a school. They're lower in reading, but they have a budget that they get so much money per year, they have to spend it on books for those kids. And I don't hear that very often for schools. You know, you always hear that they don't have any money in their budget. They don't have this, they don't have that. I feel like it depends on your priorities. You know, I don't know anything about school budget, so maybe I'm misspeaking, but that catalog is a brilliant idea. I was going to say, how can I get in on that? But because it's in Australia, then I would have to ship there. We need to do that something. Maybe we can hire you, Frances, to create us a catalog, and then we could have it printed as a group of authors. That's a whole nother job for you.
I was going to set it up in Australia first, but Australia has a very small population compared to the US. But it's online as well, so teachers can access the catalogue online. They don't have to have the printed version. But the printed version is really good to take into schools or at markets and things like that. And my next step was exactly that, to do US authors in the same way. And if your books are on Amazon, then you have no problem with shipping to another country.
That's
Uh,
very true.
yeah, because most of my sales for my books come from US Amazon, even
So
though
are they all paperback version in that catalog?
yeah.
Okay.
No, actually they're not. They're not all paperback. Some of them are hardcovers, but there are, because this is Australia only, they are only shipping within Australia. But you could easily, some of them have hard copies, some of them have posters and card packs and all sorts of things that go with their books. It's been a very interesting year doing this because we've all learnt from each other as well.
Well, that's what's so special about it. When we come together like this, I was so excited about doing this podcast because getting in front of the people that just texting and getting a few ideas here and there, but to actually have a podcast that we come together and talk about everything that we do that can help others. And just like that catalog, I mean, you've shared more than a handful of ideas today that is, we haven't even got to the marketing conversations because I can't wait to talk to you about marketing. But there's so many things that we can learn. I was interviewing Doug Barry. I don't know if you know him. In one of his marketing ideas, he sponsored a race car and they put his logo on his race car. So every time it went up, this up and coming racer, he's got this big old rabbit on the side of his race car. Nobody's ever done that before. It's like, that is brilliant to put, you know, any of our characters on the side of a race car or on the side of, you know, a vehicle, even if we made magnets on the side of our vehicles and put them, and we go down the street and we're an advertising billboard for ourselves, you know, whatever it is, we get all sorts of ideas from, there's so many talented people out there like you, Frances. I couldn't wait to talk to you. And I've still learned so many more things today. Getting back to our questions, changes in technology have opened the door for many self-published authors, but also led to an overflow of low-quality books. What advice would you give to authors who want to stand out for the right reasons? This is one of my biggest things I talk about all the time. The market is flooded, but there's not that many really good books. I mean, they're low budget, they're not great illustrations. Share with me your thoughts on that, Frances. I know how you stand out.
This really sort of stabs me in the heart, really, because I'm really campaigning against this. It's the same when I chose the authors for this catalogue. I had to reject a lot of the books because they just weren't high enough standard for teachers to use in schools. And it worries me immensely that any person can now produce something with AI where all the characters all look the same, the illustrations look the same. You can tell immediately that it's AI. But that's going to change. It's going to get better. And then they don't use an editor. They just write the story and it hasn't been edited. It hasn't been rewritten. It hasn't been checked, hasn't even been proofread. And it makes me very sad that a lot of parents who may not be aware that this is a poor quality book, are buying it and taking it home and sharing it with their children. And it worries me a lot. I mean, when I had a publishing company in the UK for 10 years, this was before the internet, if you can believe that. And we had to print everything by offset printing, which means we had huge print runs and we had to store the books, and there was a huge cost involved. Now you can develop something yourself, you can plop some illustrations in, you can put it on Amazon for practically nothing and try and sell it. That saddens me that the quality checks have not been done. So, my suggestion for new authors is to research, find out first what's selling, what constitutes a good inverted commas book, take lots of webinars, do trainings, read lots of picture books, and actually use an editor, use a good illustrator and a book designer, and produce something that you can be proud of and that the children will love, and it's worthy of the work. And that's hard. It's hard work. It's a slog, especially if you don't know where to start. Oh, I have an idea. What do I do next? I think by researching, there's plenty of information out there about how to write a book and how to produce a book. So I think the main thing is don't rush into it, to take your time, learn the craft, learn all the things about it, make mistakes because you will make mistakes. And research.
My first 10 books, I was so fortunate to find Robin Katz, my editor, and she's so wonderfully talented with her metering and never have a mistake. And I too use a book designer.
It is a hard road to navigating because there are loads of scammers out there. And what I usually do is ask other authors, several authors that I know and trust, and who do you use and who do you recommend? And even then, it may not suit your book or your style. It may have suited them, but it may not suit you. So it is tricky. There's no other way around it. You've got to do your research. When I had my publishing company, we used to send a piece of work to an editor. It was full of mistakes as a test. And we would send them this page and we would ask them to edit it for us and then send it back. And it was only after we saw what they did that we hired them. It was quite good because we put in quite a few sneaky little things that only a very good editor would notice. So it might be something with grammar, it might be something with tense and how it's set out on the page and so on. So you can do it.
That's some great advice. I've pulled a book from a launch because something happened. And believe me, I don't know about you, Frances. There's always something that happens through the process. You have this deadline, somebody gets sick, somebody's on vacation. You've written a wide range of books. Obviously, you've only shared a handful of books, from Nate's noisy nose to Baby Worries and activity books. How do you come up with these stories? Have you written silly books? Is this the first silly books that you've written? You can tell I'm a huge fan. I don't write silly books like that. It makes me want to write a silly book. I love them so much.
Yeah.
I think I'm too serious.
Maybe it was in response to the fact that all my other traditional books were very serious educational books for teachers with lesson plans for children. I think I just got fed up of writing those and I wanted to have a bit of fun. I wanted to have some fun. So, and that one I showed you about the monster was my first book. And this one, which was very straightforward, it's just learning to count 20, but it's also my bestseller. It still is a bestseller. So whether it's the cover that really brings children in, or the fact that, I don't know, I've got 4 counting books. I've got one about dogs as well, which is counting and comparing. And I think
love
it's
the dogs.
it's just the
my gosh, I love them. Two dogs' tails wagging. I think it's the monsters and the bright colors. I love the black background with the bright colors. I wouldn't have picked black personally myself because I feel like, they're kids' books or counting books, but I think it is. I love the bright colors, and I think maybe that's what it is they just jump off the cover.
And then I started to, at the back of the books, I started to put information in as well.
Oh,
So that all there's a picture there of what the drawing of the dinosaur was, and then there's a picture of what it really looked like. So but they've got actual factual things because kids love learning about the names of dinosaurs and
yes,
what they were.
especially dinosaurs. They love the dinosaurs. I love information in the back of the book. Fun facts. I did that with my Who's New at Lou's Zoo, even though that is a silly book, not quite so funny as yours, but I took the actual real life animal and talked about the lifespan of what they eat, where they live. I think that's a lot of fun and another layer of learning. And I think that gives you more information to create lesson plans and helping the teacher with different types of lessons. Another question, we're back to marketing, seems to be a challenge that many authors struggle with.
Yeah.
Spent thousands of dollars marketing on Amazon. And after 2.5 years, you know how Amazon works, paying monthly, and then you don't get paid for 2 months. Oh, they make it so confusing. I sold this many books, 2 months, I'm getting paid, but how much money did I actually make? Another venue that I took on, Advantage Amazon, where you're buying your hardcover. I invested in hardcover. You sell it back to Amazon. They buy those hardcover. I've got a nightmare right now. So I did that for over a year. I wasn't making a lot of money because Amazon Advantage told me they weren't receiving the packages at the facilities when I had proof that they were receiving them. I wasn't getting paid. You pay for shipping. Now I've canceled it. For the last 6 months, I've gotten one book box, one piece, one piece, one piece, one piece. They're still returning books after 6 months. It is a marketing nightmare. Tell me about your marketing. What do you feel is the most successful? And everybody's going to have a different answer to this of where you make the most money, Frances, as far as you selling your books.
I haven't cracked this yet. Even working with 36 authors and then speaking to some of the very successful authors in some of the Facebook groups. And it seems to me, that you make the most money by going into schools and doing a whole school presentation where you're actually becoming a performer. You are performing the story, or you're getting kids excited about writing, whatever it is. You have to be a real performer to get the audience really fired up, and you bring in the books to sell to parents, or you send an order form home so that the parents can order books. Now, I can't do that because I'm immunosuppressed. I have rheumatoid arthritis, so I take medications that suppress my immunity. And since the pandemic and everything, it's tricky for me to do that. And even in
Uh-oh.
Tasmania, where there's such a small number of schools, I don't think I would make enough money as a visiting author anyway. But again, with this group of teachers, that's where we've got our biggest orders. It's from the author going into the school, even if it's just showing the catalogue and talking it through with the teacher, they can then appreciate and understand it. Like you, I've tried everything. We've emailed schools, it doesn't work. You send out flyers to schools, it doesn't work. You try Facebook ads, and that used to work a few years ago, but it doesn't seem to work anymore. You spend a lot of money and you don't seem to get the sales. Some people go into bookshops and they do launches there, but the bookshops take their cut of the sales as well, so I don't think that works. And one reason why I did that catalogue was to find ways of how we get sales. And you know what, Joanne? I think the traditional publishers are struggling as well. We're in a social media market, which you would think would make it easier to get noticed, but it doesn't. It seems to make it harder to get noticed because people just quickly scroll through things. They don't really read things very carefully, and they have all this information just thrown at them from TikTok to Facebook to Instagram and everything. They all include ads now, the TV programs, ads thrown at them. And I think people are fed up with ads and they don't want to see it. So it makes our marketing harder. I haven't cracked it. But my ads come from Amazon. Most of my sales come from Amazon. I do Amazon ads, and that's where most of my sales are from. And
Mm-hmm.
so I haven't done any ads in Australia with Amazon. I've done them in the US because that's a much bigger market, and a few ads in the UK. But I find I get sales from Japan and Argentina and, other countries, European countries, but mainly the US. I don't know. I wish I knew the answer.
I think it varies from author to author. Like I said, I've done the Amazon ads. There's nothing like that direct contact with parent, grandparent. I've had really good success with farmers markets, with school visits. School visits are okay. Going back over and over again, that's why I publish so many books, because if you only have one, two, or three books, there's not enough different books to keep going back to the same schools. I've gotten more school visits with going to farmers markets. So you meet a lot of teachers, you meet a lot of principals. This last year, I went to, it's a specialty school, but they do a lot of writing. That was a fun school. Not a lot of book sales, but I just feel the more you get out there and the more you meet people and they get to know who you are, a podcast, they get to know who we are and the people that we are. And let me look up their book and see what they're all about. But I say you have to have your hand in everything. There's not just that one answer. You're right about being a performer. I'm not big and animated going to schools. I wrote a song and we do a little song at the end, which the young kids like. I haven't done school visits with my chapter book yet. And I'm going up to Northern California to Carrie Nichols School this next school year. I'm excited about that one because they buy a book for every student. That's in their
Wow.
budget. Never experienced that before. Marketing is the hardest. I
Wow.
keep hearing it over and over again. And you're not going to find just one marketing tactic or one marketing thing that is going to make you a bunch of money. It's a lot of different things. And I love going in front of the kids and being inside of a school. I go up north to my niece's school. It's been a wonderful experience every time I go. The teachers are excited. They really promote it for 3 or 4 weeks. You give them the order form and you get a lot of orders, but it's not like that in every school. Every situation is going to be different.
Well, my dream is to have something like scholastic book fairs where you bring together, which is sort of like the catalogue idea, you bring together all the books and you make a display in the school and they're left there for a week and the parents can come in like a bookshop and choose their books. That would be lovely, but finding someone to do that would be very
Yes.
tricky.
I tried to contact Scholastic. They told me they don't take books that are not published by a publishing house. I told them that's really sad because there's a lot of good books out there that kids are going to want and the parents are going to want to buy. And that's really doing a disservice to the schools and the teachers and the parents. It's
Yeah.
really unfortunate. If you ever try and create something like Scholastic with self-published authors, let me know how you build that because I would love to do something like that. But I think it's like your catalog, Frances. You really have to be selective of who you're bringing in It can't just be anybody and everybody. You've got to have a good product, a good book that is highly rated as a self-published book.
I tend not to use the word self-published anymore either. And this was something that we talked about with this catalogue, because self-published authors now have sort of got this bad name,
Yes.
this bad taste. In some librarians won't even consider it. So I do tend to call myself an independent publisher or a micro publisher. And so it takes away from the stigma of self-publishing that has happened because of this flood of poorly produced books. And you can't blame Scholastic or anybody else. But from their point of view, they should actually look at it first before they make such a decision.
That's
I
right.
mean, when
They
I
shouldn't be so hasty.
yeah, because when I wrote Baby Worries, I contacted Scholastic in UK because I was one of their authors. And, I said, I've produced this, and I sent them a hardcover copy of it, but I didn't even hear back. And you think, oh dear, you could have at least had the decency to write back to me. So Scholastic are very closed shop usually, but they also told me that if it did get selected for the book fair, they take 80%.
You really don't want them anyway. I think I would write them off and say, well, sorry, that doesn't work for me. I had a bookstore one time. We have this cute little downtown historical area in Southern California, Orange County. And she told me that she will take 50% of the profit margin between what my price is and what she sells it for. And I just said, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I mean, I don't know about you, Frances, but illustrations and printing a hardcover are the two most expensive. And rounding it off and a halfway reasonable illustrator, you're putting out almost $10,000 for one book. Between $8,000 and $10,000 you've got invested. Hopefully, we'll still be alive when we get our money back. I don't know about you, but we really have a passion and we love what we do. But you can't make any money on that, starving artist, as we call ourselves.
Yeah, it is hard. It's very hard. I mean, I've got a distributor. I wrote some books about Tasmanian animal. So this is it's about mammals and birds of Tasmania. And inside it, it
Oh,
has an information page about the animal or the bird, and as well as activities. So I've got a distributor, a Tasmania distributor for that, because it's only sold in Tasmania. Another one, Awesome Facts About Tasmania. So that they're sold to tourist information centres and libraries and museums and so on like that. But
uh-huh.
they take in, yeah, it's about 60% in total.
Wow. What does
Because,
that mean, Frances, when you say they're a distributor? So you created it. Do they print it? Give me a little bit of what.
well, I had to have them printed in China. Wasn't happy with even though it was recommended to me by several other authors, had a horrible time. The quality wasn't as good as Amazon. So I had to print them in China in order to get the print cost down. Then the distributor takes 20%. And so they actually physically go around in person with your book to bookshops, gift shops, museums, tourist information centres, all of those things, and they show it. And then you have to give the normal 40% discount, which you would give to a bookshop. So
Mhm.
that's 60%. So the only way I could afford to make any money at all is to have it printed in China to get the costs down.
Right.
So you have this initial outlay of printing, as you know, in China. They store the books, they handle everything, and every month I just get a check for the books sold.
Well, that's a nice, even though it's a lower profit margin, you're not touching those though. You're not, they're marketing it for you. And you said it's only in Tasmania. Have you researched that to see if we have somebody like that in the United States?
You do have distributors in the United States. Yeah, there's plenty of them. The only reason I'm working with a Tasmanian one is because they're purely Tasmanian books. So
Mhm.
this distributor only deals with Tasmanian books.
Frances, I have to have you back again because I know we only touched on the tip of the iceberg with you. You've done so well at showing all your books and the insides of them. You've done a wonderful job. I knew this was going to be a very informative video. Share with the listeners where they can find you, your website, social media handles.
The website is simply francesmackay.com, and probably the Instagram one is easiest to find. So it's Frances.
Okay. And I always put that, all your handles in the description. Frances, anything that we didn't cover that you want to mention quickly?
Something that we did do here in Australia, we've got an author pen pal system, and you sign up with a school, you write to the kids, and they write back to you. It's really you do it for a year, and you get to know that class, that group of children, and it's amazing that you can see the change in the children's writing. I worked with year 2, so they were about 5 or 6-year-olds, and their first little letters, they could, hardly form their letters and so on. But by the end of the year, they were writing full sentences and lovely, and it was lovely to see.
What a great program.
It was set up by a librarian association on how to get more contact between children and direct contact with authors.
That's a great idea for us going into the schools and maybe offering that to the librarians, the teachers, a program that the kids could write to the author, or even after the event, you try to answer all those kids' questions, and you only have about 5 or 10 minutes for Q&A, and you never get, in fact, as they're lined up going out the auditorium, I'm going in the lines because they want to ask me more questions, and I try to answer as many as I can because they're so thrilled to learn about you, and you never have enough time. I had a little girl write me an email. I did a virtual visit, and she asked if she could write me directly. After the virtual author visit, the class did like a thank you note. She wrote this whole little story about how she loves my book. She loves the illustrator. She shared with me, please write a book about a little girl playing basketball. I conversed with her mom back and forth a couple times. I can't tell you how special that was. Posted again on my social media. I just thought that was so special that she wanted to contact me directly. And for a second grader, had very good handwriting. You could tell she spent a lot of time writing that, and in cursive. You don't see that very often. And I feel like that's a tip for a marketing, that you get those questions after, or even the classes, maybe the teacher per class, they can get together with their students and write a list of questions and then have those sent.
It makes it more real. Recently, my nephew's children had a birthday, and they asked the little boy who's 8, and he said, "What would you like for your birthday?" And he said, "I would like Auntie Frances to write me a story about me being a soccer star." So I did. So that's him. And I well, it wasn't Canva, but it was a similar program where I could just make one book, so I made a copy for myself, and then I had to do one for his sister as well.
Of course, that's how my grandkids are. I'm glad I only have 2, because I started writing for John, and then Amelia said, "Where's my books?"
But
I love that.
the girl you were talking about, she won't forget that, and she may become an author herself. So, it's great to have that impact.
One of my hopes and dreams, we have an RV. We travel, not as much as we would like to because my husband still runs a business. But in a couple years when we retire, I want to start traveling the United States. And those schools that I have done virtual visits, I want to schedule and go to those schools and meet those kids, and how special that will be. I can't wait to do that. That's one of my goals. Frances, it was so wonderful meeting you. And like I said, I would love to have you back. Do you have anything new in the works that you've got coming out?
Well, like you, I'm doing a chapter book, so a whole new experience for me, and I've gone through 3 editors so far.
Well,
Yeah, so I gave it up for a while. Yeah, it's a whole different experience. Easier in a way than a picture book. With a picture book, you may only have 500 words, as you know, and to reduce it to the most important words, at least with a chapter book, you can be freer with your words and your sentences.
that's what I like about it. I could sit and write all day. The ideas just keep going and going. I want to give you a tip about an editor, Carrie Turner. I hired as a developmental. She helped me a lot develop the story, Secrets of Hawthorne Manor. She's not the cheapest, but she's very talented. I will go back to her for my second book, but I think I'm going to hire her to do all the editing. She's very punctual. She's quick. When she says she's going to send something to you, she does. She's very talented. She taught me how to develop those chapters. She's a great editor. You can find her on social media, Carrie Turner. She's
Okay.
excellent. Thank you, Frances.